Some people truly believe that if we become aware of our state of minds, our society is over. That's not so. I wouldn't say that to be true. I would most likely say, and I am saying, that we don't talk about our state of minds because no one pays attention to it. At least not that much yet, or it hasn't gone that deep. So most people have a state of mind of not good enough, a sense of lack, neediness, the occasional anger, the occasional anxiety attack, the occasional stressful day. But as we're going into it here, if we talked and became more aware of our thought processes, it wouldn't end society. It would change it as we know it. More people will be compassionate. More people will be loving. And it won't be the superficial, oh, thank you so much. It won't be that. It'll be more of a, it will have more of a depth to it, where when you are appreciative of what someone does, you may say exactly that. I appreciate what you did for me or to me. It won't be superficial. So the fact that at this time we haven't looked further into our thought process is a little bit unfortunate, because there's still millions of human beings who are taken over by their thought process. Yes, that's true. But at the same time, um, it has to happen this way, because if you look at it, if we didn't have the negative thought process, there wouldn't be an awakening from the negative thought process. So all this anger, anxiety, and things, it's a evolution point of human consciousness for us as human beings. Excuse me. And without it, we ultimately, don't grow. As you see it in small humans, babies and children, where at the beginning, 2 or 3 years old, they're very upset they can't have the banana shake at 9:30 at night. I can't have. And then occasionally, let's skip to 10, 11, 12-year-old child. Can I have the snack? 10:38 p.m. No, you can't have the snack. Oh, okay. So if you've brought in that awareness with your with your child or your children, then it wouldn't be such a hindrance later on. Bring it in early. But with most of us human beings, the way we raise our children is as friends. We raise them as our little friends, we're not really a example for them, because we have things going on and we drop something, we say shit or whatever it may be, and the child sees that, whether it's not that word or whatever word it is. If it's not handled with presence, the child or the other person or humanity picks up on it, and then it goes into it further. So yes, uh, without paying attention to our thought process, it does take longer for that shift and that evolutionary state to deepen, but it starts with you and your state of consciousness. How do you handle situations? How do you handle a situation where you're walking through the house with a glass bottle and then it drops and breaks? Is there an immediate reaction, a negative reaction? Or is there it happened, And then it just happened. Instead of becoming negative, and how did that happen? And I can't believe it. You see what to do to go beyond it. And at that point, as glass bottle breaks, it's just needed to be swept up. It's very simple. But if we don't bring that necessary awareness to these situations, our minds take over more and more and more. And it takes longer for that blossom to happen through our human consciousness, where no longer we're dependent on situations to keep us at ease. Oh, everything went nice. Oh, okay. It could be, oh, I went out to do this. I got in the car, and as I took off from the parking spot, someone sideswiped me. But I picked up the bumper. This happened to me actually. I picked up the bumper, put it in the car, and continued on my day, realizing that, okay, I know I have to get this fixed. Very simple. But for humanity as a whole, it takes not just one human being, but it takes us all to, yes, acknowledge the thought process and be more aware of it and notice that it's in a stage where it can be negative at any time for any reason. You could be doing something compassionate or nice to a person, but they still find some kind of way to be negative about it. And once you realize that, that's only because they're completely still engulfed in that negativity realm of consciousness where they're probably reaching a peak to where they'll be tired of it. Here's the peak. And then they'll sort of plateau where they won't have continuous negative thought. It'll be relatively neutral. But then they may start questioning themselves or may find these videos and start realizing that they can change the way that they respond. And then here comes the evolution. And it begins to sort of go up like that. And everything does become a little bit more pleasant. And even if you have the most horrendous situation, instead of finding some more negativity out of it, it becomes neutral and a pleasantness is there. And it's beautiful in a sense that you're still able to handle the situation accordingly and not needing the negativity. Oh, that's alive. That's a wonderful feeling. It is. And then that gets to a point and it plateaus and it becomes neutral. And you basically hold that frequency there, which means that you don't need it to be superficially exciting. It doesn't really go back to the depths of negativity, but it holds the frequency. It's kind of like the hands, where this implies that you hold the frequency of a certain state. That's why we do it. You bring the negative and the positive, so to speak, together. And then that's alignment, that's presence. And it doesn't need superficial positivity. It doesn't need horrendous negativity to feel alive. There's just a sense of aliveness there. And you can handle situations accordingly, even without the whole of humanity talking about awareness and paying attention to your thinking. Doesn't have to happen all together. It's going to happen individually. And that's how it's happening. A little bit slow, but it is happening. And the more you practice it in yourself, the deeper it becomes in yourself, and the more it can be spread onto other people that you meet. You have a situation where you do something with a person, and they happen to sort of have an expectation on your reaction to the situation. And when it doesn't go that way, so the expectation of your reaction can be they're already upset. Say for example, it's a car collision or something like that. They already upset. They expect you to be upset. So when they come out of their car walking to you, it's in an upset mode. And then they get over to you and you're not upset at all. Your question to them is, are you okay? And most times, some people, they do have that. They first come up and they, how everything okay? But occasionally, if the person thinks that it's your fault, they come up to you and they're very upset and they say something like, "Are you a complete idiot?" And then you might say, "Are you okay? I wanted to know, are you okay before we go any further? Is everything okay? Do we need to call 911?" And they may still at that moment say, "Yeah, I'm okay." And that's okay. But then you handle the situation aligned with that state of presence, knowing that you already become aware of why we don't talk about our negative thinking or our thought processes. You've already become aware of that. So you may know that this person may not have become aware of that. And so you don't have an expectation for them to be aware of it. You don't have an expectation for them to become negative. You remain neutral. You continuously hold that frequency of presence and handles the situation accordingly. That's how it's spread to other human beings, because hopefully they'll notice it at some point, maybe a week down the line. They'll notice, oh, I did have that accident, but it happened to me. I had that accident, or actually for me, someone bumped my car. But after they left a note, that was very nice. They left a note. I gave them a call, and we met and we spoke. And at the end of the conversation, the person said to me, "I've never met anyone where I hit their car and there's such a pleasant experience. I never had anyone that did that. They were always a subtle," she said, "there were always a subtle grievance there, a subtle sense of anger." And I said, "Yes, that's a little unfortunate, but um, I appreciate that you, there was all appreciation. I appreciate that you left a note. I appreciate that you came and spoke with me. I appreciate that you appreciated the fact that you have the ability to consciously handle the conversation or the situation and take care of it accordingly. There's no negativity there. It was just an accident. It's okay." And she was a little, uh, couldn't believe it, but I know that it's there. The sharing of it is there. But there has to be a sense of awareness, holding that frequency of alignment with your true self, if we can call it that, because it is. The thought is not you. The true essence of who you are is the consciousness that you are. Without that true essence of who you are, the consciousness, there wouldn't be the thought. So how could the thought be you? But ultimately, yes, not many people are talking about our thought process or how to be more. We have some trickling in. Out of the 100%, we have about 5% trickling in where there's some mental health practices and things like this. But we probably will get to a point where we, as a whole, will go deeper, even under the psychiatric, whatever we call it, and recognize that it's thought itself, it's the identification with thought itself that creates all the negativity, stress, and havoc. Thank you for joining me.